2026 is shaping up to be an awesome year for movies, but I do have one question about a movie we have heard nothing about, and it's one that I don't think will come out in 2026, and I'm not sure if it will ever come out at all, and it is Fast X Part 2. And for people that don't understand why that's weird, Fast X Part 1 came out in 2023. This is essentially the Avengers Endgame of the Avengers Infinity War that was Fast X Part 1. If you remember, Avengers Endgame came out a year after Infinity War. Wicked for Good came out a year after Wicked. The Harry Potters did it this way. This is just how you do these two-part movies. And yet, in 2023, Universal Studios released Part 1, and we have basically no information about Part 2. And the more we hear about it, the more it seems like A, maybe they'll get started soon, and B, they might not ever make this thing. I want to talk about why. But in case you don't really understand what the deal with these is, the Fast and Furious movies started in 2001. They were a bunch of movies about street racers led by Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. It was very low stakes. They were doing crimes and stealing DVD players or something. It was kind of like Point Break, but in cars. And they made Too Fast, Too Furious. They made Tokyo Drift. Both of those were sequels, but they were kind of side pulls because it would be one character going off on a little adventure or a completely separate group of people who maybe would connect to another character later. It was not until Fast and Furious, which was number 4, that brought back most of the main characters and started this through line that we've been working through till now. 5 was an enormous hit, reinvigorated the franchise, introduced The Rock, kind of brought back The Rock's career. It took place in Rio de Janeiro. It was kind of functioned like a heist movie. Everybody loved it. Fast 6, also very successful, very fun. Now we're turning them into kind of car, spy, superhero people. 7, 8, 9, those movies all exist. I would say it has been diminishing returns in terms of like story. I would say they've been less good movies as they've gone on, but they've still made a solid amount of money. They have an audience. They're very popular. There was a spin-off, the Hobbs and Shaw movie. That was fine. And this whole thing was supposed to end with a 2-part movie, Fast X Part 1 and Fast X Part 2. So like I said, Fast X Part 1 came out about 2.5 years ago, and we still don't know when they're going to start filming Fast X Part 2, which is really strange. And we've gotten a little bit more information recently about why Fast X Part 1 was so chaotic, and I think that helps to explain it, but also The Rock's been posting other stuff, so I've really just been trying to make sense of it this week. So first off, there was a big article on IndieWire. This was by Brian Welk, and it was an excerpt from Barry Hurt's book, Welcome to the Family, the explosive story behind Fast and Furious, the blockbusters that supercharged the world, where it focuses on the difficulty that Fast X had with this director, Justin Lin. Now, Justin Lin had been with the Fast and Furious movies since Tokyo Drift, which is the 3rd one. He loved the franchise, and he was a big part of why this franchise was so successful. And if you don't remember, he was supposed to direct Part 1, and he did for like a couple of days, and he did all the work before the actual camera started rolling, but for a while it was like he's gonna make Fast X Part 1 and assume Fast X Part 2. But we know now what happened behind the scenes, and it's complicated. And these movies have been known to be quite dramatic, right? Famously, The Rock and Vin Diesel had a big feud that they sort of quashed, and it didn't seem like they were ever going to be movies together. Now they're back. In the end of Fast X, you get a cameo from Hobbs, which, again, maybe we'll never ever see what happens there, but like, presumably he was going to be in the next one of these. Just the other day on his Instagram, Vin Diesel made a post about how much he loves The Rock because he's so friendly and they've never had any beef and they're both two titans. Vin Diesel loves to talk about how him and The Rock are like two similar titans. They're both huge guys who everybody wants to see fight, which, like, I believe half of that. The Rock is a big guy, and you want to see him punch the other biggest guy. Then, like, no offense, Vin Diesel, I think it's cool that you're in the movie with him, and you guys seem relatively tough, but the fact that you keep bringing up this comparison feels like a little weird. Also, it was weird when you called that interviewer the president of Beautiful Land or whatever. That was also weird. Unrelated, but weird. But so Justin Lin, there's all this work coming up with Fast X Part 1, and then, right as it starts filming, he leaves. Now, if you remember, at the time, there was this video that came out that Vin Diesel posted. Vin Diesel, he's a poster, man. He's all over Instagram, and he's always got to share his wonderful songs and like his life lessons with us, the family. We're all his family. So he puts out this video. It's him and Justin Lin. Justin Lin is doing his own thing, and Vin Diesel comes in his amazing like Vin Diesel aura and just is like, isn't this movie going great? How do you feel, Justin? And Justin has no interest in talking to Vin Diesel at this point. Maybe because he's knowing about other stuff, or maybe because he's just tired, whatever. And he's going, yeah, no, cool, okay. And then Vin Diesel's like, is this gonna be the best movie ever? I love this. And Justin Lin goes, sure, yeah. And Vin Diesel answers with, oh! But a lot of people said, and the article points this out, it kind of seemed like a hostage video. And Justin Lin, like, maybe he's a serious guy. He doesn't like taking Instagram videos. There's plenty of people like that in Hollywood. I think as much as I would get swept up in all the craziness, would also kind of be annoyed when someone just shoves a camera to my face for their Instagram video. But what it turned out was happening was 2 other fights were going on behind the scenes that Justin Lin was trying to figure out how to deal with, and they would eventually destroy pretty much this movie. And the crazy thing is, like, the way fights used to go in these movies, in like behind the scenes fights, they were known for having like people counting how many punches actors would get. So they would have a guy who was counting how many punches The Rock gets, and then a different guy working for Vin Diesel counting how many punches Vin Diesel gets. They had to have the same amount of punches. Here's what it apparently ended up being. So Vin Diesel's character, Dominic Toretto, for a while has had a son. It is a son he had with Elena, and it's been very complicated because his girlfriend came back to life, kind of. So it was like, who does he want to be with? And also now he has this kid, but then the kid's mom's killed in the 8th one. So now Letty has to kind of take over for her. That's where we are. The kid's name is Lil B for Brian, which it makes sense in universe, but like I feel like it's a little weird because like Brian exists. Brian's alive as far as you guys know. If my friend, even my greatest friend ever, named their son after me, I would be like, don't you have like a grandfather or something? Like, is that not an option? Because yeah, like Paul Walker dies between movies 6 and 7, I believe, and the movies had this really hard time dealing with the fact that this character has to have a happy ending, right? Because it would be weird if he got killed also in real life, especially because he got killed in a car accident, like speeding or something. I don't remember exactly what the details were. And he has a son named Lil B. By Fast X Part 1, this kid's like, I don't know, 9 maybe? He's like not a baby anymore. He's learning how to drive the cars and like doing car stuff. Not like, he's not driving the cars yet, but like it seems like in a movie or two, he's gonna have a car that he drives alongside his father. And so the bad guy in Fast X Part 1 was a character named Dante, played by Jason Momoa. And this character was a lot. That was his whole deal. He was both kind of the Joker in that he was crazy and unpredictable, and he just wants to really cause you chaos, but also he would act kind of like, I don't want to say like flamboyant, but like that was kind of what he was going for a lot of the time. And sometimes it came off as like vaguely menacing, but otherwise it just came off as kind of aimless. But anyway, he was the son of the drug kingpin who the guys killed in 5. So he's been after the family for revenge this whole time. Not really doing anything, but now he's doing stuff. Which means this character is a relic of Fast 5, which happens to be where Vin Diesel's baby mom comes from. The character who is now dead. But there was going to be a twist, apparently one that Justin Lin fought for and Vin Diesel fought against. It was going to have the baby actually be Dante's kid. We would have learned, I guess, that he slept with the mother of the child right before she slept with Vin Diesel, and he assumed it was his kid, and maybe she didn't even know, maybe she was embarrassed because of how evil Dante was or whatever, but that was not something that they ever brought up, and that would have been a big twist at the end of the first Fast X movie. And frankly, for me, I'm 50-50 on it. On one hand, I get it. It's kind of interesting because of how much they care about family, but clearly they're not all related, right? Like, Tyrese is not related to them. Han is not related to them. So, like, who cares? It's important to raise your kid if he is your kid, but by the time, like, you've had him for a little bit, even if you find out he's not your kid, you're not going to be like, okay, well, I don't really actually care about him now. You could go do your revenge or do whatever you want to this kid. I don't care. Like, of course the family is going to care about Lil B. He's named after Brian. So, like, they love Brian so much. So, like, on one hand, I don't think it really matters. On the other hand, like, I think it's kind of dramatic, I guess. So I understand why these movies wanted to do that. And instead, the big twist at the end of this movie is that a different character, and they do this in the movie, like you see events and then you see like Jason Momoa was there the whole time. So like that's the setup for this first movie. And then at the end, you find out there was a different character who was just off screen also there the whole time, played by Alan Ritchson. And that's Jack Reacher for people that don't know, and Hawk from Titans. So it turns out he was also the secret bad guy that's been working with him the whole time. And he seemed like a good guy, so then he kills all of our guys in the end, and none of them die, but they all explode or something, so we would have to explain how they all survived the explosions, which would have been fine, because Fast X Part 1 is just a really weird ending. John Cena sacrifices himself, and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. The kid's safe, and Dom is about to get away, but then it turns out Jason Momoa is there and he's going to blow up a dam, but then it turns out the family's coming, they're going to help him, they're in a plane, and then it turns out that Jack Reacher has a rocket launcher and he's going to shoot the plane, and turns out he's been bad the whole time, and then they blow up the dam, and like that's the cliffhanger. We don't know how the guys in the plane don't die. I mean, they get in a car and then like it falls into the river or something. There's going to be some explanation like that. It's going to be like how they survived the plane crash in the A-Team movie. But then you have that, and then the other hand, Dom and Lil B are now sitting beneath a dam that is about to explode. It's in the process of exploding. A humongous thing of water is coming to get them. We can't see any other characters near them. It is very unclear how they're going to get out of this. And it's not going to be Letty or Cypher because they're in some ice base that looks kind of kooky, which like it would look like over the top in like an Avengers movie. And these Fast and the Furious movies, like they used to steal DVD players and VHS players, but you know, whatever. It's like, it's a really weird cliffhanger on this movie on. Overall, this movie was not very good. I did not particularly like Jason Momoa. I know some people thought this performance was fun. I think it was just the only performance in this movie that was something, but I don't think it was necessarily something good. It was just something kind of interesting. The action sequences were cool, although some of the effects didn't look great. And the finale with like a highway chase and the dam, it's okay, but I don't think it like raises the stakes from the other movies. And that's the second thing that Justin Lin apparently fought with the production team on. So Vin Diesel was fine with this. I mean, he probably, well, I don't know, maybe he would have loved it. But the idea was apparently this movie was going to end with Dante driving a truck monster drill thing that was going to eat the cars and burrow under the city or something, and then they were going to drive their cars to catch this. So it's kind of like Truckosaurus mixed with that drill that the Underminer has, or I guess if you want to get a little bit more like the drill from Batman Arkham Knight that Arkham Knight drives, and it's dumb. It's a dumb ending. Could have been cool though, you know, but like also this franchise has done dumb things before. Who's to say this would never work? But apparently it was too marvelly for them, so they didn't want to do that. So it seems like those were two things that Justin Lin clashed with Vin Diesel and the producers on. And we still don't have a good explanation for why Justin Lin left, but he just left. Like days into shooting, he was replaced by Louis Leterrier, who people will remember from directing the Transporter movies and The Incredible Hulk, and I think one of the Now You See Me's. But like Fast X Part 1, for all its faults, it came out. People saw it. But Fast X Part 1 currently is sitting at a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's not good. And I think that was kind of where the opinions generally were, where people were like, this is kind of fun, but not good for this franchise. I don't know if that's the worst this franchise has ever been like before, but it was not a popular movie, and it made less money than you would expect, although still a lot of money. It's like, we've been talking a lot this year about like how much Thunderbolts made, and was that enough for it to make its budget back and whatever. Like Fast X Part 1 made a grand total of worldwide $704 million, but because it reportedly cost somewhere around $350 million to make, it is not clear whether or not it made a profit. I feel like there's different reporting, but like clearly it was not a hit. They did not recoup their budget. And these Fast and Furious movies have been billion-dollar movies before. So like at the height of their popularity, Fast 7 made $1.5 billion worldwide. They never quite got back up there. Fate of the Furious around $1.2 billion worldwide. Hobbs and Shaw $760 million worldwide, which is pretty good, especially considering the movie cost about $200 million. F9, the Fast Saga, $719 million. That's tough. We're coming out of COVID, I guess. This is 2021, but also this movie cost $200 million. Unfortunately, Fast X made about $5 million less worldwide and cost an extra $140 million worldwide. So you can see the problem. Imagine if Avengers Infinity War was a flop, if it did not make money. What do you do? Especially if you haven't filmed the next one yet. These Universal are going to go like, listen, if we finish this trilogy, maybe we'll get some of those people back that did not watch Part 1. I mean, they're probably going to call it something else. I've heard Fast Forever thrown around. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they end up with. But like, can they make enough money to offset the cost of making this movie? And that's a question that's like really tricky, considering A, we don't know who's in it, but B, you'd kind of have to assume most of the main characters would show up, especially since some main characters who like were not in this movie at all show back up again at the end, and it's like, oh, they're expensive. That is an expensive actor to get for like another one of these. I just want to go through the principal cast of these movies. I would expect all of these characters would make some sort of an appearance, be kind of big players, which is another problem, right? How do you balance all this screen time? But like here, presumably some of the characters left alive. You got Dom and Letty, Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez. Vin Diesel, obviously big star. Michelle Rodriguez, she's a star. Ludacris, Tyrese, Nathalie Emmanuel. They're going to be in a lot of the movie. They're probably not the most expensive people in the cast. You've got Han, who came back to life 2 movies ago. Jordana Brewster's still in these. Then you got John Cena. He dies in Fast X Part 1. Now, he dies in a big explosion that we see pretty much from every angle. However, that has not stopped anyone from getting better and showing up in the next movie, because I believe that is how Letty died, that is how Han died, and they're both here. You just heard me mention them in characters that are going to be in this next one. So that is the base family. Okay, I may be forgetting somebody. That's most of them. Rita Moreno might also be there. She's like their grandmother or something. But then you have the bad guys for this next movie. Jason Momoa, Aquaman, huge star. Alan Ritchson, Jack Reacher, pretty big star. He's like, that's a very, very popular television show that he is the face of. Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, also around for the agency side of the plotline. Also, Kurt Russell wasn't in the last one. I have a feeling he'll show up in this one because he is her dad, and he's Mr. Nobody. He was a big part of the 6, 7, and 8, like those ones. Also, probably Scott Eastwood. I can't imagine he's incredibly expensive. So that's the agency. We also have to deal with Cypher, Charlize Theron, when her apparent sidekick, Gal Gadot, another character that I am sure we saw explode before, but she is back and she's a submarine or something. I don't know. We've also got the return of Shaw briefly in this one, and that might mean Shaw's supporting cast, which is Luke Evans and Helen Mirren, who is his mom, and then Hobbs, played by The Rock. I don't know if Vanessa Kirby, the girlfriend from those, which I guess she was Shaw's sister. I don't know if she's going to show up again, but like those are all characters who you would expect to have like a presence in this movie. That is an insanely expensive cast. On top of that, there are very few things that these guys have not done. They've done cars on ice. They drove a tank. They drove a big magnet. They did Rocket League with the ball in Italy. They drove up a dam. They drove around the Burj Khalifa. They fought a drone. And genuinely, I cannot remember anything that happens in 9. I saw it once. I clearly didn't have strong feelings about it. Oh yeah, Michael Rooker was in that. He's the dad, I think. And I probably forgot somebody. I probably forgot a main character from those. Let's see. All right, Pete Davidson was in the most recent one. Oh, and yeah, Danielle Melchior, who plays Elena's sister, who Elena dies at 8. So she's like Vin Diesel's sister-in-law, kind of. Also, apparently, in June of this year, Vin Diesel announced that Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor is returning for Fast X Part 2. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, considering the actor died quite a while ago. They'll probably either use CGI, which is okay. Sometimes that looks fine. Sometimes it looks pretty rough. Or they'll use his brothers, who have done some stand-in work for him in the past. Either way, that's a bizarre thing to have to also throw onto this movie that also has all of those stars I just mentioned. Like, just think about it for a second. This movie has Dwayne Johnson, Jason Momoa, Jason Statham, Vin Diesel, Brie Larson, Charlize Theron, Helen Mirren, all these other people too. But like that's such an expensive cast. Apparently the first movie, all the stars cost $100 million. So I understand why Universal was like, maybe we just don't make this next one. Because if they try and spend another $200 million, but probably closer to $300 million, and hey, maybe they have to do reshoots, maybe things get a little messy, maybe it gets back to $350 million, and they only make another $700 million, they could be out a lot of money. Whereas now, they could just not do it and do something else. Or maybe they could wait until there's like enough excitement, but then also if you wait, maybe people will just be like, oh yeah, we don't need many more of these movies, we're good. But it's really bizarre because there was a time when this franchise was like the biggest thing. Fast 7 was an enormous movie. Like I said, it made $1.5 billion worldwide. Like any movie this year would kill to have made that much money. And that's about as much money worldwide as the 3 Marvel movies that came out this year. Maybe more. And yet, mostly because the movies aren't very good, and it's nothing but secret twists of this family member was also there and you missed them, but they're very important and they're even more important than the last one. I feel like it's been very diminishing returns. Also, the fact that people die and then always come back. Like, no one has stayed dead in these movies. And it's honestly pretty bizarre that Gal Gadot can come back for these, considering how dead she died in that one movie where she died. But that's the thing, because the movies are insanely expensive and they have to keep upping the ante, doing new car stunts, new car fights, or driving maybe some sort of monster car that eats other cars. That seems like something they'll end up doing eventually. As much as they always say like, oh, we're going to take this one back to the streets and it's going to be like the old ones, they can't. They're too big. They're like super spies now that have doomsday weapons, multiple doomsday weapons per movie. At one point in, I think, Fast 8, maybe it's my favorite line in any of these, Letty just screams, "The device," because that's where we are with these. Like, this is what James Bond was in the 2000s before they rebooted it with Daniel Craig. But the problem is, they also have to, for some reason, be in cars. They've been to space. I just don't know where they go with these. And up until pretty recently, there were rumors going around that Universal was just not going to do it. Like, they had to cut $50 million off of the movie somehow, or it wasn't worth it to Universal, and apparently there was lots of fighting. Vin Diesel has said they figured it out, they solved this problem. He has even suggested that this movie is going to shoot sometime this year, which would mean in the next month, which I think would be a surprise to everybody, considering how much nothing this has been. But even if it does film this month, that means max, we're getting this out early 2027. That'll have been almost 4 years since the last one came out, which for any movie in a series is fine, but for a part 2 is really rough. And it kind of bums me out because I do like these movies. I think 6 is really, really fun, and obviously 5 is very good. 3 has a lot of charm, but just watching them spit out, it's been kind of painful. And I know people say it's about Marvel a lot. It's like, oh, they should have stopped at Endgame. I understand why people think that, but like, there's clearly more avenues for them to go down, new characters to explore. With Fast and Furious movies, it is very unclear how you move forward. They were trying to do a young Dom spinoff. They were trying to do a Han spinoff. They were apparently trying to do a Roman and Tej spinoff. None of them ever got off the ground. There's a kid show that has 6 seasons apparently, but I don't know. Maybe if this movie was amazing, it would have made $1 billion and justified another one immediately. But I don't think we've seen this happen yet, where part 1 bombs and part 2 is totally up in the air. And I find that really fascinating. And one thing that I always think is so funny about these movies, especially like looking back, is how much characters got elevated to being the world's greatest hacker and how much they have world's greatest hacked the other ones. For a while, Tej was the world's greatest hacker. Then it was Ramsey. Then it was Cypher, and then Dante stole Cypher's machine, so now he's the greatest hacker ever. And it just goes to show you, data security, it can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. And if you want to get a better handle on your internet security, I would highly recommend you check out this video's sponsor, Private Internet Access. Private Internet Access is a VPN, so it's a virtual private network that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. But okay, so why use Private Internet Access? Well, it is the world's most transparent VPN provider. They never record or store user data, and their no logs policy has been proven multiple times in court and by a third-party audit from Deloitte. And it is useful if you want to hide your IP address and encrypt your internet connection. It is also really handy when it comes to accessing region-restricted content from all over the world. As I'm sure you know, the various streamers have different content libraries that are available at different locations. So like, you may be watching a show on American Netflix, and then with no warning, with no explanation, it is just gone, and the only Netflix you can watch it on is French Netflix. So it's like, sorry, no more American Netflix. But Private Internet Access lets you overcome those restrictions, gives you the option to change your IP address to one of 91 countries and all 50 states, so you can access websites and services that are only available in those locations. Watching Netflix without Private Internet Access is like paying for the director's cut of a movie, but then just only seeing the trailer. And Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, Mac, Android, Linux, iOS, and all kinds of others, and a Private Internet Access subscription can protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time in your household. And signing up for Private Internet Access, it is risk-free. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee with 24/7 support. And if you use my link, piavpn.com/thenandocut, you can get an 83% discount on Private Internet Access. That is just $2.03 a month, plus 4 months are free. So once again, go to piavpn.com/thenandocut for 83% off a subscription to Private Internet Access, plus 4 months free.